You're looking good, and it feels good to be with you today. This is News with the Eye of Faith, and I'm Kendall Bryan Hunter. This podcast is sponsored by my book, Consider My Servant Job, available at Cedar Fort and other fine retailers. I put a link in the comments section. And this is News with the Eye of Faith, where I talk about news from the point of Jesus Christ and the doctrine of Jesus Christ. So first item of news, Joe Biden is still president. So everyone concedes that Joe Biden is mentally a bunch of soggy Fruit Loops. That is everyone except his wife. In fact, the whole point of running Vice President Harris as president is because of his mental acuity issues. But he's still in office. Why is he still in there, and who's actually making the decisions if his mind is gone? Don't go into denial on this one. Now, speaking of the vice president, the VP, the WP, the Washington Post, is accusing her of using gimmicks. Now, this is interesting. She's campaigning, slowly getting her platform out, but she's advocating ideas that are actually President Donald Trump's ideas. Now, this is called a Confusocracy. That's a term I made up. Confusocracy. And it's when Kamala Harris uses flattering words and fair promises and pretends to adopt Trump's policies when she gets in office. Those will probably go away. You read about that in the Book of Mormon, right? We're studying it this year. So here's a life hack. At work, I was in an elevator, and there's a woman was complaining about the layout of the building I was in, and that's understandable. Venting, give people space, it helps catharsize the issue. But then she said, if a woman had designed this place, none of this would have been so messed up. Now, ironically, the head of the building project was female. You see where this hate is going? So that was clearly a sexist comment. Now, here's how to respond to that. The first thing you say is, excuse me, did I hear you correctly when you said whatever? And then you say, what did you mean by those words? So you don't attack, you back off and let them explain themselves, and it'll work out much better. You want to be efficient or effective. Those are sometimes two different things. Now, here's another thing that happened to me. I was on the bus and I was wearing this hat. Now, I don't endorse candidates on this. This is not the point of the podcast. So I was wearing this hat, and then it was kind of interesting. There's this woman on the bus. She's a member of my stake, and she had an unusual look about her, so she's easy to recognize. So I'd known her for a couple of years, just showing up to the same meetings. She looks at my hat and says, Trump should be killed. So she's advocating a felony, a murder, a capital crime, and a political assassination. So I, just off the top of my head, I responded, well, they tried that, and it didn't work. That's an A-plus response to the situation. And then I continued as she's moved seats. I said, the Book of Mormon, I said I wasn't into political assassinations because the Book of Mormon warns about those. So I just backed off and don't push things. You don't go out of control with these types of issues. Another thing, too, I should have mentioned that in the state of Utah, premeditated murder is a felony, and ironically, it's punishable by the firing squad. Now, here's a quote from Joseph Smith, Teachings of the Prophet Joseph Smith 358. I use Teachings of the Prophet Joseph Smith because the Joseph Smith paper sometimes is very bulky and it's hard to find stuff. So I use Teaching of the Prophet Joseph Smith. Many people have copies of it, and it's just an easier reference, and you can double-check it against the Joseph Smith papers. But what Joseph Smith said is, when you find a spirit that wants bloodshed, murder, the same is not of God, but is of the devil. Free speech follow-up. I've been talking about that. Governor Walz, the vice president of the former vice president, said that no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy. And it's interesting because, as Reason Magazine pointed out back in 2017, that it's actually legal. The Supreme Court ruled on that. You can't engage in hate speech. Now, free speech is not. It's not an absolute. It does not include fraud, slander, libel, or harassment, deceptive marketing practices. But think about this. During the Grand Council, Heavenly Father let the devil have free speech. So if you want to cancel free speech, that's something that God was not willing to do, even for the devil. So, in the United Kingdom, x-ray techs are now asking men if they're pregnant. I have a link to this from the Telegraph, 8/10/2024. The reason why is they had a trans female, or I should say a trans male, a woman who is living as a man, got an x-ray and she happened to be pregnant. And so, of course, the child was in danger. So here's some principles. We respect people, we protect children in all stages of development, and we respect people's agency. But where is this transgenderism going? And is the medical community betraying our trust by going woke? Or when you show up at the hospital, are you in danger because of woke practices? Now, speaking of protecting children, on this upcoming election, abortion as a state constitutional amendment is appearing on the ballot of several states. They want to enshrine abortion as a constitutional amendment. Now, people complain and say, oh, abortion, you're trying to impose your religion upon us. Well, there's several you can make ethical arguments that don't involve that. You can go to Peter Kraft, has discussed his Apple argument. Peter Kraft, the Apple argument against abortion. Here's two deontological arguments. It's a duty to have children, and killing the baby is using a baby as a means to an end, the woman's lifestyle choices. So it'd be violate Kantian principles. Now here's a utilitarian argument. Does it adversely affect future generations to abort children? And does it help society overall to abort potential Einsteins and a potential Mother Teresa's? Two utilitarian arguments, two deontological arguments, no religion involved. But here's the doctrine of Christ. Now, when you think about abortion, think about it in terms of premortality. What it would be like for a premortal spirit to watch as its embryonic body is being ripped from its mother's womb. The second thing to think about is the spirit of Elijah, the hearts of the fathers turning towards the children. Now think about it in terms of abortion. Hearts of the fathers turning towards their children. Think of it in terms of the family proclamation. Here's something else to think about. Members of the church who have family proclamations on the wall, but they vote for death and vote against the family proclamation. Student loans. President Biden, who, like you said, he's not mentally there, and we all know it, but we're pretending like he doesn't have mental issues with his fingers on the button. Talked about canceling student loan. Now, think about this in terms of the persuasion angle. If you use the expression debt forgiveness, you are going to lose. That will happen. Use the term debt cancellation. No. So you reframe it in terms of keeping your promises. Oh, you want debt forgiveness, but aren't you breaking a promise you made? Okay, think about it in terms of the moral angle. A student loan is a loan. It's not a grant, it's not a gift, but a loan, and you need to pay your loans back. And you made a promise to your bank or other lending institution that you would pay it back, and you should keep your promises. And you remember the people of Ammon? The people of Ammon were able to keep their promises even to the point of letting themselves get killed. They died rather than break their promise. I paid back every thin dime, every red cent of my student loan. So you can do the same thing. So please follow the example that I said. I paid it back, and you can too. Just listen to Dave Ramsey, and he'll tell you how to do it. Olympics are coming to Salt Lake City again in 2034. So my question is, will we use the full, correct, and revealed name of the church this time? Secondly, will we proselytize? And back in 2002, one of the things we did was not to actively proselytize. But in doing that, did we make a concession to Beelzebub in order to get the Olympics? Were we trying to serve God without offending the devil? Will we proselytize? Do we have that free speech right to proselytize? Well, that's the news with the eye of faith. I'm Kendall Brian Hunter, and be sure and get a copy of my book and follow my other Come Follow Me, Get to the Point podcast. Thank you.